A very good evening to one and all present, and welcome to a brand new episode of Express with Ease by View TV by Vijay Bhumi. This is a series that is extremely close to our heart, just because of the fact the way the format is of the series. We are here on a weekly basis. We get a contemporary topic, and we invite some of the brightest minds from the various schools of India to come and share their opinions, share their perspectives with us on these contemporary topics. This is the one of its kind platform that we have for high school students, where they get a chance to tell us how they feel about the various issues that we're talking about in mainstream news media today. And without further ado, I would like to welcome each and every one of my bright panelists who are joining me this evening. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all my lovely audience members who are joining us on a week-on-week basis in large numbers and making this series a complete grand success. Thank you very much for all the support and all the love that you guys have showered upon us. Now, without further ado, let me first lay down the context of the topic that we are going to be talking about today. So this is a topic that has been discussed hotly and deeply in media today. If I have to quote a recent example, it recently started with a scene in the web series A Suitable Boy, where there was a scene that showcased Lata, the main female protagonist, a Hindu girl who was kissing her Muslim friend against the backdrop of a temple. As soon as this scene hit Netflix, and it was showcased on Netflix in A Suitable Boy, all hell broke loose in India, and there was a lot of debate and a lot of chatter on social media. It led to the onset of the hashtag boycott Netflix movement on social media. And I don't think this is the first instance of this kind that we have experienced in Indian mainstream media. This is one of the many instances of this nature that we have faced in Indian media. Around that time also, we heard that the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting had decided to bring video platforms, also known as online curated content providers, under its ambit. Mind you, earlier these were under the ambit of the Ministry of Information and Technology under the IT Act, and this was the first time that there was talk around bringing it under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, when this news broke in the media, one of the major objections that a lot of people raised was that, does this mean that there is going to be more censorship when it comes to OTT platforms? Is it going to be a situation where there's going to be excessive regulation? And there was a lot of speculation around this topic. Hence, VUTV thought that it's important for us to understand from the youngsters how they feel about this issue, whether they feel that should OTT platforms be subject to censorship or not, whether they should be regulated or not. If they are to be regulated, what is the extent of regulation that we are talking about? So this is where I would want my student panelists to jump in, and I cannot wait. Like I'm sure all of you are very eager to hear what they feel about this particular topic. Without further delay, let me introduce my panelists for today. We have Mr. Tanush, who's joining us from DPS Pune. We have Ms. Vaidehi Pathak, who's joining us from DPS Pune as well. We have Ms. Shriya Mandava, who's joining us from the Meridian School, Madhapur. We have Ms. Riya Shri, who's joining us from the Meridian School as well. And unfortunately, we have one more panelist who we are waiting for him to join us, who is Mr. Vatsal Krishna from the Meridian School as well. Thank you very much to all my student panelists for taking out the time from your busy schedule and joining us this evening. I know it's been a very busy time for all of you guys. I mean, you've had a lot of screen time. You guys are doing online school, your classes, your tuitions, everything is online. And I know you guys are super busy. So thank you so much for taking out the time. And I can't wait to jump into this conversation with you. So my first thing that I think I'd like to, probably me as well as my audience members would love to hear from each one of you, that how do you guys feel that should OTT platforms be subject to censorship or not? Which side of the fence are you guys lying on? Let's hear it from all of you. If I can first request Tanush, if you can unmute yourself and tell me how do you feel about this? What's your perspective on this issue?
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, the OTT platforms is the over-the-top media services which provide direct streaming of these various movies and TV shows on your mobile phones. Now, with the upcoming of the lockdown due to the pandemic, there is a large number in the viewership has marginally increased in the past few months, and also the number of platforms present in India. They see India as a huge market. Now the number of platforms. First we had Netflix, Amazon Prime. Now we had Hotstar, Voot, Alt Balaji, numerous of them. Now, unlike the content provided by the cinema houses or cinema or the films which are monitored by CBFC or the BCCC, there is very little or very minimal regulation of the content that is uploaded onto these streaming platforms. These the content here violates various laws of the nation, but still is under the Supreme Court's observation. Now, as of now, none of the government has very less control, and the censor board also has nearly no control over it. If we speak about the viewership, the major part of the viewership belongs to the middle school or high school students, and the amount of explicit content present on these websites is huge. Like nearly every show is bound to have some amount of explicit content, and it's not very beneficial to these young students and the young generation of our country. Now, if you talk about some apps which are mainly India based, like Sony Live, Hotstar, they last year created some digital curated content complaint copyright council. Now, this was an adjudicatory body that was formed, which dealt with all this explicit content or the uh, s- unsecular content present on these websites. Now, I strongly believe that there should exist some amount of censorship, but not to an extent that the writers reach a writer's block or they cannot write more beyond their capabilities. Otherwise, more or less, all the same content will be coming eventually on them, and there'll be nothing new, and they'll slowly turn into the a new film industry. Now, adding further to this, what various other apps have done is like Woot Kids, for an example, I can say they have created child-friendly apps in which there exist all family-friendly content, and there is hardly anything that is problematic. So my stance is just there should be just some amount of censorship, and not everything should be censored. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanush. I think that's a very balanced opinion on the issue. Vaidehi, how do you feel about it? Do you agree with Tanush in some respects, or do you think?
I do agree with Tanush when he said that there is a lot of explicit content and the viewers may not be of the right age group to actually view and understand the right and wrongs of it. So yes, there should be restrictions, but there shouldn't be a lot of restrictions, like Tanush said again. So OTT platforms should be supervised but should not be controlled in a way. The censorship criminalizes defamatory content, which I do agree with, but it also censors the deliberate intention of the religious feelings, which can be misused on, as we can see, as you said before. But these rules are mostly targeted towards films or series that defame a person or a community or promote and glorify terrible deeds. So the restrictions are required, but till a certain extent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vaidehi. So another balanced opinion coming there that yes, there is some amount of regulation that is required. How do you feel about it, Ria? Like, do you think that there is regulation that is required, or it should be complete freedom of speech that should be the overarching principle?
So, ma'am, I would think I have a different. I do maybe agree with it, but I feel so if there's anyone regulating it, it shouldn't be the government who's doing it, because I feel that if it's the government who's doing it, so some take shows or movies that portraying them in a different wrong way. it may be true, but they might censor it, and we might not. It might not reach us. So I think it should be regulated, but by a different independent body. So actually, they had even signed, I think, 8 streaming services. They came together for a self-regulatory code, which the government did not accept. So I think they should go ahead with that, because in that all the concerns that they said they would ensure that there won't be any content that is promoting terrorism, or there's no one's religious sentiments would be hurt. But the government did not accept that. But I think they should. So it's independent and everyone's concerned.
So I see a very interesting point coming out there that Ria has made, that there should be regulation, but the body that should be regulating should actually be an independent body from the from the legislature. If I understand correctly, that's the point that she made. I noticed Shreya had some sort of agreement to the point that Ria made. So Shreya, let's hear from you. How do you feel about OTT platforms being subjected to censorship?
First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm having a great time so far. And I completely agree with what Ria said. So OTT platforms have become like such a big fad now. So the topic, should OTT platforms be subject to censorship, is a very controversial thing that has been in discussion for a long time. So topics like this, they have a lot of gray area, and there's no definite yes or no. So even the mixed opinions here, all of them could be considered right. But the thing is, it all boils down to what you consider censorship to be. The definition of censorship would be the main point of whether we agree with it or not. So, according to the Government of India, one of the definitions of censorship was, as per Rule 3, Sector 2, Parts B, C, and E of IT Rules 2011, any content displaying, hosting, or publishing any obscene, pornographic, or unlawful content and content harmful to minors should be blocked from public view. Apart from this, content which doesn't align with public interest or national sentiments, etc., should also be highly frowned upon or censored. So this sounds like a reasonable, like justification or definition to which censorship should be, like provided. However, the biggest loophole here is, what is public interest or national sentiment? So the biggest reason OTT platforms have become such a fad is because of the freedom that allows them to display all the harsh realities which are there in real life, which is not usually displayed in mainstream media. So small content creators or radical artists have a platform to display their content to mass audience, which they usually wouldn't get with mainstream media like theaters or like TV serials, etc. So for such unconventional and controversial content that wouldn't be aired anywhere else, if they're put under the direct jurisdiction of the government, they become every single TV channel or broadcasting channel that was there earlier. So like Hotstar or something would become, like something that is regulated under the government. It would become any other channel that's actually displayed on TV. So we also heard about all these things like movies like PK, Padmavat, Oh My God, Utta Punjab. All these things were subject to a lot of discussion on whether or not they should be aired because of this religious propaganda or nationalist agenda. So imagine the fate of all the other shows and movies that like OTTs broadcast if they were under the government. So while it's important to have like some level of censorship to instigate like some certain amount of discipline, like Tanush and Vaidehi said, just like how Riyashri said, it's also important that it shouldn't be directly under the government, because then the government will have the right to pick what classifies as harmful or offensive to just the ruling party of the government that's happening, like the government in rule right now, or whether it's actually harmful to public, or if it directly damages public interest. So then again, a self-regulatory body wouldn't actually be efficient, because then it would just be in the hands of the own, like OTT platform to, check whether they're actually following these censorship rules or not. So what I think is there should be like a mix between what the government says and the OTT platforms. So let's say like a 50-50% of a board meeting, which shows which part of which shows whether it should be censored or not. So then there would be content regulation, but it would also be responsible and it wouldn't be biased. So that's what I think. I'm sorry for taking up so much time.
No, thank you very much, Shreya. I think you brought forth another very important perspective in this particular, discussion that we are having, and I'm glad that all four of you are actually representing four different sort of schools of thought that one would think of when we discuss this topic. So now that everybody has put their views on the table, what now I'd like to know is now I'd want to get into some very pinpointed questions on this particular topic. My first question is that should content creators be given the breathtaking creative freedom that they are given on OTT platforms? So if you compare the content that one sees on OTT platforms versus the content that we see on mainstream media, we see that content creators have become a lot more liberal in a lot of respects when it comes to the kind of content they're producing on OTT platforms. So I want to understand from you that do you think that they should be given an absolute, right and the absolute freedom to be able to produce content, whatever suits their creative palette? Where are you guys on this particular issue? That whether there should be absolute freedom that should be given to content creators, or we should create some sort of contours? Like if we're creating contours, what should they be? I'd like to understand from you. So first, if I can invite Ria, how do you feel about this?
Just 1 second, I'm so sorry, but it appears that Vatsal has also joined but didn't get to share his views. So I don't know if you saw him.
I don't think I've been able to see him. Are the rest of you able to see him?
I think he just left again. So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So until that's happened, because I think he got lagged out. So I want to know that should content creators be given the breathtaking creative freedom that they have been given on OTT platforms, or should there be some sort of restriction that must be applicable? So Shreya, you'd like to go first, or Ria, you'd like to go first? Either, whoever. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that everyone has the right to speech and expression. So everyone should be allowed to give out whatever content they want to, because ultimately it's up to the viewer if they want to see it or not. It's their choice. And another thing, no matter what content you give, everyone will have different opinions about it. Suppose we take an example of a movie. Even if it's a censored movie, we do see some scenes in which the woman is abused. So a part of them may say that it's wrong. A part of them will say that no, she brought it upon herself, so it's right. So no matter what we give, there will be different opinions about it. So whatever the content creator is just trying to give their opinion on that particular subject. So I think they should be allowed to portray whatever they want to.
Lovely. So now, Vatsal, now that you have joined us, I think I'm gonna now, move the focus to you. And I'm gonna now, first, I'd like to understand from you how you feel about the topics that whether OTT platforms should be subject to censorship. And second, I would like you also to respond to this question that do you think that content creators should be given the breathtaking creative freedom they're given over OTT platforms generally? So let's hear from you. Where are you on this issue?
Ma'am, so from the start, I always believe that democracy, the main structural and basic point of democracy is the freedom of speech and expression given to every single individual in a country. So I truly believe that censorship should not be there for at least the OTT platforms, as already there is a censorship board for films and news. So they can't put out whatever they want. And I really believe in a quote which has really inspired my life, which says that change can only be brought through realization. So only when a person or a society is able to realize their wrongs, and when that is brought to light, that's the only place from where you can start progress and development in a society. So OTT platforms have played a huge role in educating their audiences, as before they were really free and open to make whatever sort of film they want and express their opinions, even if they were against the government. And unlike films, they were able to portray various incidents such as the Nirbhaya case or the Harshad Mehta scam. and bring to light on somewhere maybe even the forthcomings of the government and the forthcomings of our society as a whole. And that has really helped every single individual in our many individuals who have watched the show change their behavior and change their mindset, and in turn which will change society. So I feel even though OTT platforms not having censorship may have some cons, the pros or outweigh the cons by a large margin, at least in my mind. And it really goes on to show the world a lot when we can say that we in our country are free to constructively criticize our government and our leaders, even though we are mere citizens of our country. And I really hope our country keeps it that way.
Super. So now we've got another person from another school of thought on this issue, and that's what completes the discussion for us. Now I'd want the other side to jump in at this point. So Tanush, if we can hear from you now that what you feel, that whether content creators should be given the absolute freedom to create whatever content that they feel that they must on OTT platforms. How do you feel about it?
Yes. Freedom should be given for content. I believe that freedom should be given for content, but it should be to some extent. It should not be that he's attacking some community or some minority religion. See, India is a very secular country. We have we have a lot of diversity, and we have to accept that fact. We cannot be like this person is attacking this religion or this small community he's attacking. Also, freedom should be given equally to the writers, because once, see, if you know about these OTT platforms, for it's like for every dollar the show makes, a part of it goes to the writer. So to earn money, he has to write better. He has to sell his thoughts better, express it better. Now, once if we introduce complete censorship, and once if his story or movie or a script, whatever it is, it gets censored completely, and the government doesn't allow, or the body which is censoring body does not allow to publish it. Always next time when he's writing, his mentality is going to go like, if I write this and it gets censored, I won't get paid, I won't get money. So eventually, slowly he's going to start and move towards a writer's block. He won't be able to think of more ideas anymore. Now, freedom should be given, but the writer should also accept his limits and not cross some barriers. That's my point.
Super. So now the other side has spoken. Now I will take the other side again. So Shreya, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, thank you. So I think when we were talking about the censorship thing, when we say censorship should be allowed to a certain extent, the thing is nobody knows what that extent is. So I'm just going to be very frank for a minute. So the recently a movie came out. I think everyone has watched it, PK, and I've already brought this up. But so everyone here who's watched PK knows that it's about religious like awakening, what he saw from an outside innocent person's point of view. So that movie, under the pretense that it was attacking a certain religion, was not allowed to be aired until a certain period of time, until the Supreme Court had intervened. So, as we've all watched the movie, I feel like there should be some sort of like level at which you should say that this is offensive, or oh, this is actually harming a community and the image of that community in society, rather than just, oh, they have, like they've portrayed the community in this particular way that's not exactly harmful or insulting, but it's just a new perspective. So I think the minute we give the power of censorship to the government and the government alone, what happens is the ruling party, whatever they believe in, that particular belief is forced onto the censorship board, which is then forced onto all writers in every single movie that comes out. So if, let's say, because the government now believes in Hindutva, anything that's even slightly offensive or portrays Hinduism in a new way would be considered offensive. Whereas any other religion, it would let it slide. So I think if you give it to the government, and because government keeps changing, there wouldn't be a certain like stability, or there wouldn't be a constant to which what is offensive and what is harmful to public eye, and what is just not in favor of that particular party.
Super. So Vaidhi, now you tell me, do you agree with this, that involving the government might make it very party, if I may say so?
I think what Shreya said was right, that the government will change, might not, with the elections depends on it. But if the government changes, the rules will change, and which will not bring a stability to the rules. So I think that a different body should be there for it. But I think censorship is required till a certain extent. Like, well, while people are saying that the creative freedom does go away from them, it might not be exactly true. Like, you might want to cut down on the defamatory parts or the controversial parts, but I think that still there could be content that will still pass through with it and not exactly create a writer's block. So I think restrictions aren't that bad some as Tanush said or other people
Super.
said.
So another thing that I'd like to come to, and this is again one thing that I'm sure you guys would have read extensively when you would have actually researched on this topic, is the fact that people feel the quality of content that is available on OTT platforms is better than the quality of content we see on television. And that's probably also the reason why a lot of people of your generation, my generation, are actually tuning into they usually consume more content on OTT platforms rather than your regular television. So I want to know, from you that do you guys agree with this very popular school of thought that the quality of content is better when you actually give more freedom to content creators, because that's a large takeaway that a lot of viewers have taken from the OTT platform content that they're consuming, that the content is better, the stories are better, it's more relatable because there's a lot more freedom that's available, and people are able to talk about sensitive topics which probably mainstream media just chooses not to go into for some reason. I'd like to hear first from Vatsal, since he jumped into this conversation right now. How does he feel about this?
Ma'am, so just like I said, according to me, censorship should not be there, and the quality of content, as you have said, is way better on OTT platforms than TVs. And for the main reason for that is TVs and films are subject to a censorship board, which prevents them from uh, trying out new things and bringing out new films and documentaries which are maybe different from the mainstream, which keep on coming out all the time. That's why the TV is now slowly and slowly dying, and almost every single serial that comes out has the same plot, and that's why many people of our generation may not really be interested in watching TV, and nobody really likes to watch it. On the other hand, when our up until now the OTT platforms had very low censorship or minimal censorship, and that's why they were able to bring out such sensitive topics and something which grasps the audience and makes them feel that they're learning something, and also create that mystery, like what's going to come out new. And on the part where people feel that all the defamatory or sexual content online on these OTT platforms, they strictly and have a discrete like regulation policy, and they also show it's viewer discretion. They show that it's 18 plus. If you want to watch, there's violence and there may be some sexual action, so it's up to you whether you want to watch it or not. So I feel that's quite enough for the viewer discretion is enough censorship for the defamatory part and the derogatory part. But maybe if some people believe the pressing topics and incidents should not be shown, it's a different story, according to me.
So Vatsal has spoken as a true, if I may say, a true pro of this movement that no OTT platform should not be subjected to censorship. And I'm glad that somebody is representing those quarters. Now, before I call upon the next person to jump in and give me their opinion, so, when I reflected upon it, one of the thoughts that also came to me was that, maybe this strand of thought that we have that, the content is better is because there is no censorship. I thought that that may not be entirely true, because I also somewhere feel that, OTT platforms have democratized the access to filmmaking. So because earlier, like, it is like, the way the film industry is, the way the television industry is, because there's so much of nepotism, there's a humongous budget that is required for you to be able to make a film production. I felt that now with OTT platforms, with YouTube, now it's become so possible for like anybody to pick up like equipment, to even like shoot stuff on their phone and be like, what, I'm going to create some content. And I feel that accessibility has also led to a situation where we are now getting better content on these platforms. So this is my opinion on this. But now I'd like to like ask Ria how she feels about this, and how she feels about the quality of content. Is there a direct relation to censorship? How do you view it?
So definitely, ma'am. Obviously, the quality is definitely because there is more freedom. OTT platforms hit upon large, so many topics, subjects that can't the sense not allowed to show on televisions or cinema halls. So obviously, the quality is dependent on freedom, but that is not the only quality of the content. Also depends on the person who's creating it. So, but yeah, definitely freedom is improving the quality.
What about Vaidehi? How do you feel about this particular?
I don't think that a lot of the creative freedom is actually taken away from the creators by censorship, because it's not like we're not looking at it as like we're not banning a lot of things. So they, I don't think that it will be, and the quality of content obviously might go down if people are, if people want sharp views, people might think that this is something that the quality goes down. But on the other hand, it might be safer because people will not be, it won't be controversial anymore. Like the thoughts of even other people will be taken into account for it.
Fair enough. Shreya, how do you feel about this? Quality of content versus censorship. Do you think there's a direct relation? What is it that has led to this sudden increase and sudden betterment of quality of content on OTT platforms?
I think, yes, the quality of content is better on OTT platforms. That's because these artists have like a creative license that they get to exercise without any boundaries when they're on OTT platforms. And I think quality is just not whether it's like funnier or if it's just more diverse or more creative, but also means that it's addressing more issues or it's talking about more things than just the same unoriginal plot line that every Indian TV show uses. So I think there's more diversity and there's more creativity. And usually in TV shows that are there in mainstream media, it's always just, there's this one damsel in distress and there's this one masochist villain and there's this one hero who's all masculine and strong and there's this one cunning mother-in-law. And that's every single show ever. And all these shows are unoriginal. They go in the same way and they're somehow always slightly sexist. So I think OTT platforms, they give like a good balance of what's happening. They have badass female characters, they have new plot lines, they have adventure, they have action, they have all these things that aren't usually displayed on mainstream media because people aren't used to that yet. So when there's no censorship, these directors and these script writers don't have to worry about what can be displayed and what can't be displayed. So the quality of content does get better, which is why many people are preferring or opting for OTT over just normal media these days. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, Shreya. Tanush, what would you like to add to this question?
Yes, I would like to add a lot to this question. Now, people are saying that no doubt the content is content has improved as compared to our televisions. But if you're saying that that's completely the reason for this OTP's success, that OTT success, that is not, because it's not just about the good content. If you see the top 5 list of the Netflix every week, one show that is a sitcom of the 1990s sitcom that is always going to be there, and that was nothing created on these OTT platforms. That was created on the mainstream television. And also OTT platform success is not just due to the wide range of content, the better content. It is now a style statement to watch shows on Netflix also. It is not just like now if you're sitting with your friends, it's like they're discussing about Netflix. You want to be a part of that cool group too. You have to watch a show on Netflix. That's making it that's another point for its success. Also the timing issue, like to watch shows on the TV, you have to adjust your timing, you have to adjust your work. But this is like at your own convenience whenever you want. So various other factors are there that have led to this success, but it's we can also, but it's not that the content is not good. It is no doubt better than the television content, but it's not even the only reason why it is better.
So much, Tanush. I'm really liking how this conversation is going. I think the amount of diversity of opinions that I'm seeing on this topic is truly amazing, because I do this on a week-on-week basis, and usually what happens is that we have like 4 5 panelists, and they're usually thinking in like one line. But this is the first time that I'm seeing like so many diverging opinions. I think this is making it really interesting, and that's why I'm getting a lot of interesting comments also in my chat box feature. So that just takes me to my next question. So now when we talk about OTT platforms, another thing that a large population believes that why we should be subjecting them to censorship is because of moral policing. Because of the fact also that we have so many anyway now, so many of our younger generation and our children, they all have access to these platforms, and now we can't figure out what they are watching, and who's watching what kind of content. And children below the age of 18 are watching things which we assume are is content which is only suitable for a certain age. So now that has become one major argument, for censorship. I want to hear from the youth. How do you guys feel about it? Because I am sure, I don't think I will be wrong in saying this, that a lot of you might be consuming content that may not be necessarily suited to your age group. And at some point, all of us have done this, right? We've all been curious, we've all been inquisitive, so we have indulged in these things. So I want to understand from you that how much weight do you think this argument holds, and how does the youth feel about this? So if we can first start off with Shreya on this.
Yeah, all right. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think, like Vatsal said earlier, other than like the PG ratings on OTT platforms and like parental locks on your particular account, there's not much you can do to like stop like children or like young adults from accessing certain content. And I think censorship shouldn't be the solution for this problem, or moral policing shouldn't be the solution for this problem. That's because even if there like if even if moral policing was to be like applied onto these OTT platforms, youth have like 800 other ways that they can be influenced by this said content, or the 800 other like different platforms where they can find this particular content. So I think rather than like creating a taboo around it and trying to like censor it or making it even more illegal or immoral than it is, I think to create like a positive environment around it and to maybe address it more would be the more ideal solution to this problem. Because moral policing, all it does is if you say don't do this, then you will find ways to do it. But if you talk about it, then I think addressing the issue would make it less of a problem than it actually is.
That makes sense. So yes, that's also one of the most prominent school of thoughts that also says that just what is this immediate need to ban and to censor? Like instead, why can't we have a positive conversation around that? Probably why this content is not suited for you, or what are the ill effects about it? Like so, rather instead of just like without speaking, without giving out a reason as to why an action is being done, first engage and probably explain the reason why a particular thing is being done, and then make the youth accountable for probably not watching this. Tanush, how do you feel about this?
Well, viewer discretion is absolutely necessary for this. Now, even if we stop these ways, even if we censor the whole Netflix and other all shows, they are having pirated websites to watch it. But at least we know right now, as a parents, like parents have a control over what the children are watching. The child lock feature in the TV. That's a great example. Now, the need for that, the moral policing and all, the need for it is that children have open access to it. That at least they'll go on to pirated websites and all. That's too much trouble. Some children also try to avoid it. Like some children also go with the mentality like virus aa jayega computer mein and all that. So people try to avoid those things, try avoiding those things. Now, mainly we should focus on the youth currently for India as of now, because in US and UK, the youth for the minors and people below 18, Netflix and other all platforms have not even allowed them to see. You need a login password every time you pause or something. They have created that kind of a system. In India, if a child gets a hold of his parents' mobile phone, he can easily log into them. There is no password protected on these apps. Nobody's going to password protect these apps. He can log in, he can watch that content. And that is not just creating a bad image in his mind, it's creating an ideology. Now, sometimes this ideology are against a specific community. Now, that will start building over time. Will lead to hatred, aage jaake, and might also lead to political instability in future. Because it's the youth of India. This is the future of India. It can lead to anything. We are going to be controlling our nations for sure. Now, we don't
Agree.
want to have that kind of future.
Yeah, no, totally get it. So that is Tanush's point of view. Vatsal, how do you feel about it?
I would firstly, I agree with Shreya a lot on the fact that the more you suppress people's needs, the more they try to get it through one way or the other. The more you will tell your children not to, the more you tell your children not to watch such things, the more they'll try to watch it. And I feel India is one such country where everybody has one opinion on something which they find wrong, which is suppress the people need or cut it off. Instead of opening up and talking about it, everything in India is if we find this wrong, just make them just keep them quiet. If someone's expressing their opinion freely, keep them quiet. However, I do agree on the fact that some shows or something maybe some shows may be not suitable for children to watch, and I think the apps should instead of adding a censorship board, the app should take it upon themselves to create some sort of feature where a parent can say like, this is my child's account. Separately, he can tell the parent can make sure the app doesn't allow those children to watch those specific shows. However, censorship like is not the solution here. The creators should not be getting affected due to the fact that children are watching their shows, but instead the apps should take it upon themselves separately to create a feature or something which can prevent the younger youth to watch such shows.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vatsal, for sharing your opinion. If I can have Vaidehi jump in at this point and tell me that, whether she agrees with what our other panelists said.
I think that children do not know what is right for them, and I think the parents and the people and the censorship here can actually help with this point, because a lot of violence and a lot of indignitary stuff has been portrayed, even though there are warnings, as Tanuj said, 18 plus, 16 plus, and a lot of other warnings, but still the youth will not listen to it, as you said as well. And I think that children don't actually understand, or we don't actually understand what is right or wrong for us, and the parents or the government can actually help us there by the censorship. So while it might even suppress a lot of content for the rest of the generation, but this might be actually good for the youth, in my point of view.
Right. Ria, do you agree with that or do you disagree with that? Where are you on this issue?
Yeah, ma'am, I think that parents can do more in the situation than the censorship. OTT platforms have provided us with parental locks, and even if that's not working, they can sit down and talk to the child. Why is it happening? More than censorship, like Surya said, they'll find 100 other ways to access the content. So, yeah, I think censorship is not the complete solution to this.
Right. So now this brings me to my final question that I'd like to throw up to all of you. to sort of, brainstorm and have a discussion about, which is that do you think that this creativity that we are all appreciating on OTT platforms, this has also ensured, and this can be a positive of it, that the societal and communal problems which were earlier a taboo topic are now being discussed in mainstream media. The youth is getting to know more about it, like issues like caste, issues like communal politics, domestic violence, domestic abuse, violence against women. All of these topics which were earlier, was maybe only restricted to news items, but now with probably more content being created on these lines, it has also led to a more wider population probably talking about these issues. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel that this is a positive that has come out of it? If I can first invite Vaidehi to share with us how she views this particular scenario.
So I think that the creativity might be a little affected by it, and a lot of societal and communal problems are being discussed in due to this, and the censorship might uh, not actually help us there. And the mainstream media, as it is mainstream now, won't be now anymore looking towards these problems, and we might not have discussions and solutions towards it. So yes, this is a problem with the censorship idea, but I think that um, maybe this can be actually tackled by looking at those rules, and not, instead of not putting down censorship, instead we can actually look for a different solution other than that, like find a middle ground for it.
Right, right. So, if I can invite Tanush, what do you feel about this entire aspect?
Well, I actually think this is a better thing that all these options have been, we have been discussing communalism and all in the mainstream. It has even changes, it has brought changes in the society also to some extent, but actually everything discussion of all these communalism, society and all is fine until you are not attacking a certain community. That's my point from the beginning, and it will stay till the end. We don't want to show hatred towards some community, like which the thing you told sparked off behind the backdrop of a temple. Now this created this did not just spark various ideas or it sparked a fire. It also made the more two communities like Hindu and Muslim, the major two religions of India, more angry towards each other. Like I had seen one movie about the uh, riots of the Gujarat riots in Kaipoche. They had shown how the media shaping had changed the whole thing. The politics and the media that had shown had converted the brotherhood into hatred. Now, talking about all this communalism and all, making the society more aware and all is fine until it does not lead to some fights or riots.
Fair enough, Tanush. What do you feel about it, Vatsa?
I feel social media and the OTT platforms are the new way of us millennials, educating ourselves on various other topics and issues, which our government may not feel like telling others about, and which our textbooks don't teach because they are scared at like to some extent they're scared to spark fights between others. However, having free platforms like such as social media and OTT platforms is great for touching upon these topics which usually nobody would have ever heard of, and actually can lead to great progress in a person's behavior and mindset, and changing how they actually behave or feel. So that's why I feel like censorship should really not hinder not only the how much and not only shape the way the writer is writing his story or trying to depict his opinion, but also we should learn not to take offense to anything, not to take offense to anything and everything which is being portrayed on such platforms. Because nowadays I feel many people tend to do that. They think that a small scene or anything which a movie or a small part of the movie is something which they do not stand for, or it's against their opinion, and they feel that that is wrong, and they're highly offended by it. And that's why I think our country is still a bit backward in the societal manner, even though we're really developing greatly in the economy side, but we may not be still at the level of various other countries, because our society is still not developing in such a manner.
Right. No, no, I totally get that. So let's hear from you, Shreya. What are your final comments on this?
I think I agree with what Vatsal said, but I also think the whole, how we started off this debate, the Muslim guy and the Hindu girl kissing in front of a temple. I think rather than igniting fights out of it, I think it normalizes inter-religion or inter-caste marriages or like affairs, because I think it like develops some sort of sympathy that, oh, these people are also humans. And when you see a story unfold in front of you where there's people who are different from you are, and they're experiencing the same things that you experienced, or when they're experiencing something that you don't want any person to experience, like casteism or like hatred towards a particular, like part of society, then you start thinking that, oh, this is not how I want to live. So I think it normalizes how people are supposed to be treated in society. I also think OTT platforms have this huge advantage or this huge plus over like mainstream media, which is social awareness, or like issues are being brought to light by them. So I think issues like women empowerment, like how I mentioned earlier, or casteism, or normalization of LGBTQ community members, or stories about them in like media, but that you can access. So I think that's more common in OTT platforms than in mainstream media. And I think this trend is actually slowly shifting to mainstream media, like movies like Shubh Mangal Zyada Savdhan, or Ek Ladki Ko Dekha. So these kind of movies are not very common, and they receive such mixed reviews from people. But that you can see the progress, as it's slow, but it's there. And so I think normalizing such things like this, raise awareness that, oh, there's something like this, and it's not something to be hated on, but it's something to just know about and something that you should accept. So I think, yeah, it does, raise some sort of social awareness and normalizes things that are supposed to be treated normally.
Absolutely. So, Ria, now we're waiting for you to give us your final word on this question.
So I think OTT platforms, they provide one of the best ways to spread awareness about the social issues. One example is Delhi crime. Of course, it fantastically depicted Delhi gang rape that happened back in 2012. So when we watch such kind of TV shows, we come back, discuss, and we get different opinions about it. And then actually, I think this is the right age where we discuss about it. And a TV show is the one of the best ways, because in public, actually respect this, and especially at our age, is very important, because this, I think, is the age when we are having opinions. We start agreeing on what is right, what is wrong. Is one of the best ways. And if Delhi crime was supposed to be censored by the government, suppose, they might have hid some of the facts. They would have manipulated things in order to show that how they were not wrong, and they would try to hide some loopholes. So I think without the censorship, with this freedom, they were able to come up with such a fantastic series. And yeah.
Super. I think, all the views and all the opinions that I've heard from you, I think this has really made this a very balanced conversation. And, I've been reading the comments that I'm getting also from the people who are listening to us live. And, I think one of the comments, like how Neha has, mentioned that, one-sided narrative is not welcome, it needs to be balanced. I think most of us agree with the fact that, yes, narratives need to be balanced. We all agree to some extent that, yes, also what it does is that, today, the fact that we are discussing these things, right, that also in a way is a welcome move. I mean, we never had these kind of conversations earlier because there were no talking points that were created. But the fact that, we have forums like these, there is content, obviously when content is being created by a creator, it is being created from a particular perspective. That is absolutely true. But I feel that when it's being created from that particular perspective, when it comes, we are also creating avenues now that that content can be openly discussed like the way like this, and that is the kind of freedom we are talking about, right? Where we can actually criticize, we can appreciate, or we can dissect that content and actually have a conversation about that how each of us feel on a particular issue. But having said this, being a lawyer myself, I definitely feel that no freedom should be absolute, as the Constitution of India says, and there must be some reasonable restrictions that fall within the parameters of the constitutional standards that must be at a minimum levied. As it so happens in every sector, it must be at a minimum levied. And I don't think that, personally, we should kind of go beyond that. Having said this, I will now close this conversation. I think it's been a fantastic evening that I've had with the, five of you, and understanding how each of you feel about this particular issue. And I think I'm saying this for myself, and I'm also going to say this for my audience members, where I'm sure that a lot of professionals, parents, educators have also joined us. I'm sure each of us have gained so much individually from the perspective that each of you have shared. And I think that deserves a pat on each of your backs for the great research that you guys have done and how beautifully you have articulated your opinion for us this evening. So thank you very much to all five of us. A big thank you to all our attendees who took out the time and have joined us today to hear this conversation and send us the very polite comments like they always do. And we will be back again next week with a new set of students to discuss again a very important topic, which I think is again a conversation that we need to have with the youth. Next week, we're going to be discussing what does the word freedom mean to the youth. So we will be back again next week, same day, same time. So we will see you again. Thank you very much, all five of you. It was wonderful conversing with you on this Friday evening. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you soon.